Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Louise Huber begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, the Liberal Party is set to return to government for a historic third term. Peter Gutwin's gamble to go to the polls early appears to have paid off, but only just. The party is hoping to secure 13 seats, but one remains on a knife's edge.
His chips cashed in for his management of COVID. The premier of the pandemic had the backing of Tasmanians.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a night.
Peter Gutwin stunned his political opponents with a snap election he carefully orchestrated. It paid off.
And whilst we have won this election convincingly, it appears increasingly likely that we will also govern in majority.
Pledging to open a new chapter after coronavirus.
I know that today many people will have voted Liberal for the first time. I will not forget the faith you have shown, and I will not let you down.
His boldest promise?
To build a health system that Tasmanians can be proud of, and I can assure Tasmanians that health will be better.
Confident even with ballots left to count.
Once the count is completed, we will get straight back to work and ensure that together we secure Tasmania's future. Thank you very much.
Majority government likely, but not certain. The party is still hopeful of gaining 13 seats. But Clark remains on a knife edge between Liberal candidates Madeline Ogilvie and Simon Barakis, not to mention the independents.
Ultimately now it's a waiting game. I think I've run a strong campaign. Madeline's definitely run a strong campaign, and I think what that has done is ensured that we will get a second seat in Clark. I am confident of that.
A question mark also hangs over Braddon as preferences and postal votes are processed in the next 10 days. Sitting MP Roger Yench is in competition with controversial candidate Adam Brooks. If he was worried, he wasn't showing it.
Early days yet, and this is Hare Clark. It's complex, there's a lot of maths to do yet, so I'm happy with the way we're tracking.
Mr Brooks, who's expected to face court on ammunition storage charges, was a notable absence at last night's function. The overall result appears to be far from a Liberal landslide, effectively installing the same number of MPs already in Parliament, but a victory nonetheless.
To get a historic third term cannot be underplayed. The Liberals have never secured a third term in Tasmanian history.
Tasmanians have clearly rewarded Peter Gutwin for his management of COVID-19, but he now must prove that he can fix a health system many argue is on the brink of collapse and solve a housing crisis which threatens the Tasmanian way of life. Promises have been made and voters won't forget them. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmania's Labor leader says she hopes this election campaign has been a wake-up call for the Liberals. Rebecca White conceded defeat last night, but her future as leader of the party is still unclear.
It's the speech no opposition leader wants to make. Rebecca White conceding defeat shortly before 10 p.m.
A short time ago, I rang Peter Gutwin to congratulate him on his re-election and his impressive personal result.
Falling short of winning government with 8 seats secured.
I hope this campaign has been a wake-up call for the Liberals that Tasmanians will not tolerate business as usual from the Liberal government.
A bittersweet moment for one candidate, winning his seat despite the fact he almost wasn't pre-selected, coming at the expense of Alison Standen.
Look, personally it was a good result, but obviously the plan was to try and win 3 seats in Franklin, and we've fallen short.
Others gathering in the north of the state, sombre as Jennifer Houston lost her seat.
I think that the Premier expected a much greater win when he decided to manufacture an excuse to go to an election. He was hoping to get a WA type result. He doesn't have that. There's still a number of seats in play.
One of those seats likely to be claimed by Janie Finlay.
It is, because I've been here before, it is so much too early to call. Feeling confident, I've had a lot of positive messages, but you never know, and it goes down to the wire.
It's still unclear whether Rebecca White will remain Labor leader, but she has the backing of a former Premier.
And you only have to look at Will Hodgman to see how long he was opposition leader to know that it's not impossible that should Rebecca White want to continue to lead the Labor Party.
She says the party can be encouraged by last night's results.
Now, I won't ever forgive Peter Gutwein for what he did to Rebecca White as a pregnant woman and the stress he's put on her baby during an election campaign that was not required.
The Greens celebrating their election result.
Hello!
Both members retaining their seats.
I'm so pleased that the Greens are the only party at this election that got a swing towards them, and I'm so thankful to the people of Clark and Franklin for putting their faith in us.
On whether Cassie O'Connor will remain leader of the Greens.
So I couldn't wish for a better person to lead the Tasmanian Greens.
The race for the final 2 seats in her electorate Clark still tight. Independent Christy Johnston currently the favourite to grab a seat.
Look, obviously it's a bit of an anxious wait, but we just have to wait and see, and the people of Clark will get it right, and we'll just see what that result will be.
With several sleepless nights ahead, it's still a long way to go before the full results are known. Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
Questions have been raised over the handling of yesterday's Legislative Council election. The Electoral Commissioner conceding multiple complaints have been made by Windermere constituents who say they weren't able to cast their vote.
Voters lined the streets at polling booths yesterday, eagerly waiting to cast their vote, but some weren't able to.
The person had turned up at a polling booth outside of the electorate of Windermere to vote, sat in a line for some long period of time, went through only to be told that they had to go into the electorate of Windermere to vote.
Former member for Windermere, Ivan Dean, says he's received several phone calls from people who realised too late and were unable to vote for the Legislative Council. He says it raises a very important question.
Would there be enough people here to influence the outcome of the election?
There are always people that sort of don't get to vote in elections, so you never get a complete turnout. We're hoping for an increased turnout. Legislative Council elections are usually around 80–83%, but I think with the state election as well, we may get closer to 90%.
Andrew Hawkey says only a small number of people were impacted, and it appears the issue occurred in the northern seat of Windermere and not in the south in Derwent.
We have had a few people that have called to say they didn't get to the right polling place on polling day, but I don't believe it's that many.
Vote counting for Windermere and Derwent continues, with the final results not expected for some time yet. Incumbent Labor candidate Craig Farrell is the front runner in Derwent, while Liberal candidate Nick Dygan is ahead in Windermere. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
Turning to the day's other news now, and a motorcyclist has died in a crash on the Tasman Highway in Launceston. Police say the 29-year-old Lagana man lost control of his motorcycle and crashed into a vacant business at around 9:30 last night. The rider died at the scene. Authorities believe speed may have been a contributing factor. Anyone who witnessed the crash is urged to contact police. A 19-year-old Sorell man has been charged with murder in relation to an alleged assault in March. Police say the 51-year-old man sustained significant head injuries and died at the Royal Hobart Hospital yesterday. The suspect is in custody and is set to appear in court tomorrow. Meanwhile, an alleged brawl outside a Hobart nightclub overnight has left a man in a serious condition. Police say he was allegedly punched and knocked unconscious by a man not known to him just after 1 a.m. near Cargo Bar in Salamanca. He was taken to the Royal Hobart Hospital. Police say the offender tried to flee the scene but was arrested and charged with assault. Any witnesses are encouraged to contact Crime Stoppers. After securing re-election in the seat of Braddon, Liberal politician Jeremy Rockliff's electoral office in Devonport has allegedly been the subject of an arson attack. Police were called to the premises overnight after an alarm went off to find a fire at the entry, likely caused by a liquid accelerant. Carpet at the front door was burnt and 2 windows sustained minor cracks. Damage is estimated at several $1,000s. 6 riders have completed an epic journey across Bass Strait on their jet skis. They say the trip gave them a view of some stunning coastlines, while it was also raising money for Lifeline.
Having circumnavigated Tasmania on his jet ski before, Dave Smith thought he'd take things up a gear for his next challenge. He and 5 mates crossing Bass Strait via King and Flinders Islands.
We do long distance rides anyway, And this is just a culmination of all those sort of things. And so we wanted to do the Bass Strait circuit of going right around.
The 6-day trip providing a chance to see the islands and Victorian coastline in a unique way.
It was absolutely sensational. We all loved it. The 6 of us guys loved it.
Bass Strait is famous for its rough waters, which many Spirit passengers can attest to. The first 2 days of this trip took their toll too.
We had 3 to 4 metre swells which we had to ride over. Fortunately, the waves weren't breaking. We knew that Bass Strait can do anything, so you have to be prepared to ride it out.
They also used the trip to fundraise for Lifeline.
Well, I'm one of the ones that have had counselling over a few years ago with a difficult issue, and so I know the value of having professional counselling to help you navigate through a difficult time.
The crew set out to raise $15,000. They're already at $17,500. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian frontline workers have been improving their trauma response skills to help them be better equipped for life or death scenarios. Organisers say in emergencies, time and action is critical, with hopes the program can help save more lives.
First on the scene of a trapped child hit by a car. This simulation demonstrating what emergency crews have to rush to on a regular basis.
So a variety of events where there is a high risk of trauma.
Crews from various services working as a team to assess fake patients, part of a trauma response program, building on their experience and training.
Car rollovers, pedestrians getting hit by cars, so those trauma scenarios where we're going to have very unwell patients in the first instance. As part of our training, we teach them how to diagnose and treat life-threatening and correctable injuries.
So that involves everything from hemorrhage control through to slightly more advanced airway care and all the way through to thinking about spinal injuries, etc.
In a potentially life-threatening scenario, time is of the essence.
Those interventions that they implement in the first instance has an amazing impact on patient journey and their recovery. It can even mean the difference between them living or dying.
And for emergency workers in the making, the extra training can help build more confidence for life out on the front line.
Having a wider range of skills at your disposal lets you tackle and be more confident in scenarios where you'd otherwise be quite overwhelmed.
Aeromedical organisation CareFlight has been offering the program since 2011. Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmania News.
Local North Melbourne football fans were in for a treat today, seeing the Kangaroos play at Blunston Arena for the first time in 18 months. After a break due to COVID-19, crowds once again flooded through the gates to see the clash against the Demons in round 7 of the season.
Yeah, it's really exciting, actually. Keen to get back in there and start off the season in person, I guess. We came a few years ago and it's just become a bit of a tradition for us.
The next Tasmanian game will see North Melbourne take on Hawthorn at UTAS Stadium on May the 15th. 5 weeks of campaigning, candidate chaos and cash splashes have come to an end, with almost 400,000 Tasmanians casting their vote. After a whirlwind election cycle, we've taken a look back at all the twists and turns on the road to the polls.
It was a short drive that would open the floodgates.
This morning, I called on the Governor and requested that an election be held for the House of Assembly.
Almost an entire year early, Peter Gutwin said the snap election was Sue Hickey's fault, following her sudden independence.
I find it very cynical. I was continuing with my guarantee of confidence and supply.
The date was set May 1st, the same day as upper house elections.
So it'll be a new ground breaking for all of us in that sense.
Then the campaign was off. Our House of Assembly hopefuls assembled. Labor turned independent turned Liberal convert Madeleine Ogilvie, impressed by Peter Gutwin.
You know what? I got to know him and I like him.
Labor had its own lineup of familiar faces, but it was frosty in the camp. Kingborough Mayor Dean Winter ditched.
I think the party has made a fatal error.
And that was only the tip of the iceberg. A secret deal leaked. The party's anti-pokies platform crumbled.
We've been able to achieve good outcomes with those in the hospitality and tourism sector.
But it wasn't smooth sailing for the Liberals either. A video emerging of candidate Dean Newington giving COVID restrictions a spray.
No one has the right
to treat us as mugs and to keep us in the dark like they are.
Mr Ewington has decided that it would be best for him to resign his candidacy.
The Liberals promised to build 450 homes at the Hobart Showgrounds, while the Greens outlined plans to combat climate change.
We have to set targets, make them mandated and support communities to transition.
Week 2 saw a race to resuscitate health, the Liberals committing $200 million for the Royal Hobart Hospital. Labor promised to patch up the repat.
We are going to put health back on the map.
While the Greens pitched health prevention, also rolling out a full ticket of candidates.
Out in the electorates, door knocking, letterboxing and talking to Tasmanians.
But behind closed doors, the Dean winter storm was brewing.
There's obviously a lot of speculation about what did and what didn't happen.
Before the factions fell and he was allowed in.
All I want to do is serve the people of Franklin.
And it didn't stop there. Another candidate out.
A complaint has been made to the Labor Party by a person in relation to 2 text messages.
While Liberal candidate Adam Brooks was left defending charges alleging he incorrectly stored firearms. Into week 3 and Labor built its housing package.
Up to 13,000 Tasmanians are being turned away from our shelters.
Before continuing on its health roadshow.
$197 million to support our regional and rural hospitals.
The Greens promising to depoliticise political donations.
Election campaigns should be a contest of ideas and values.
While the Liberals announced a $10 million West Coast package.
I'd like to think it will be perhaps the Darling Harbour of Tasmania.
And extending flights from King Island to Hobart.
We will see these flights move to a commercial model over time.
After a quick break in a turbulent campaign, the major parties went head-to-head in the election's first leaders' debate.
If Tasmanians elect a minority government on the 1st of May, I will not lead it as Premier.
I wouldn't lead a government that wasn't in majority.
Week 4 and the campaigns were officially launched.
Who do you want sitting in the Premier's chair when the next big challenge comes?
I've never wanted anything as much as I want to be Premier of this state.
While the Greens soared above the sticks, still charged from an controlled burn.
It's time that we ended native forest logging.
On land, an inland plan for commercial fish farms was pitched, while protesters put salmon on the chopping block.
It doesn't care about the environment.
The Liberals were reeling in voters at Coles Bay, announcing $35 million for the East Coast, and Labor planned a $50 million classroom clean-up.
In what we're calling a neglected schools fund.
In the COVID clinic, the Liberals bringing out the big guns. This could be the biggest upset of the election so far.
Just a reminder of the hard work and discipline that I've put in.
Powering through the last week of the campaign, and the Liberals announced a new hydropower station.
To double the energy output here at Tarraleah.
While the Liberals spruiked green energy, the Greens' energy was spent on parks.
We would return the Parks and Wildlife Service to its core mission of protecting natural and cultural values.
Rebecca White would go on to claim victory in the last leaders' debate, and that would bring an end to a desperate fight to the polls, the final choice in the hands of Tasmanians. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Some young families have been given the ride of a lifetime today, taking to the skies above Latrobe in a helicopter. The trips were organised by local charity Just Like Jack, who provide experiences for children living with disabilities and their families.
It was a special day for 11 lucky families, taking a trip to the skies.
It was really exciting. He was a bit nervous. He was a little bit. Didn't want to say too much. He wasn't talking very much up when we got going, but yeah, it was lots of fun.
The charity Just Like Jack enabling the experience.
We provide adventures for kids with disabilities that they've never had before, and we just like to give them amazing experiences, which is what we're achieving today.
The day was also supported by Tasmanian Helicopters, who donated their time and their chopper. An uplifting day for the families invited, who appreciate experiences like this.
These wouldn't always be available for us to do. It wouldn't be very easy for us to do without the help of Just Like Jack. So yeah, it just means the world to us.
Some really struggle to just get out of the house, so by giving them different experiences that they struggle to do themselves, it's such a rewarding thing to do.
Rewarding also for the pilot who flew with them.
Giving people an opportunity to go flying on days like today is all a really nice part of flying.
The passengers appreciative.
Thank you so much.
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The Devils have lost their first NAB League final by a solitary point. Starting well, they led Greater Western Victoria by a goal at quarter time. However, they couldn't forge a bigger lead in a tight contest, trailing at the final change and unable to overrun the Rebels in the final term. Claire Ransom and Candice Belbin were among the best for the Devils. The Northwest Thunder have taken 2 NBL 1 wins from 2 in their interstate trip. 19 points from Joe Tilcott led them to victory against the Frankston Blues on Saturday night before they backed it up on Sunday, beating Sandringham. The Hobart Chargers saw mixed returns, losing against the Cobras before rebounding with a victory against the Melbourne Tigers. In the women's, the Tawns also travelled back to Tasmania with a win and a loss, while the Chargers slumped to 2 losses. In their second last NBL clash at the Silverdome, the New Zealand Breakers have stunned the Perth Wildcats, winning by 2 points.
Good evening, everyone. A fine day for most of the state today, with Launceston reaching 22 degrees, Hobart 20, 17 in Devonport and Burnie 16. Across the state, Strawn reaching the state's top with 23 degrees, Friendly Beaches 22, 21 on Flinders Island, Grove and Bushy Park both 20 and 15 in Lyowini. A thick cloud band with embedded thunderstorms can be seen moving east over King Island today, while thinner bands of middle level cloud move across the state. Across Australia, a broad area of middle and high level cloud extend from southern Western Australia across the Bight, combining with clouds circulating around a low near King Island. Tomorrow's chart shows the cold front crossing Tasmania with troughs over South Australia and Victoria, while the high over the Tasman Sea moves slowly east. Winds northeast to northwesterly tomorrow 10 to 20 knots, turning southerly 20 to 30 knots from late morning. And there is a strong wind warning current for all Tasmanian coastal waters and for Storm Bay and the Channel. 90% chance of showers in Hobart and Ooze tomorrow, both reaching 17, 15 and showers in Dover. Showers in the north with Launceston a top of 19, 18 in Devonport, Scottsdale 17. 17 in Stanley and Burnie tomorrow with showers easing there, Strawn reaching 15. And similar weather continuing across the east with St Helens reaching a top of 20 degrees, Swansea 19 and 17 in Ross. On Tuesday, fine apart from possible morning showers in the north and some drizzle in the southwest. Morning fog and frost on Wednesday, otherwise fine. And on Thursday, showers about the northeast, extending statewide by late afternoon. 25 in Perth tomorrow, 19 in Adelaide and Melbourne, possible showers in Brisbane and Cairns, and 33 degrees in Darwin. And currently Hobart 17 and mostly partly cloudy and 14 in Launceston, and showers in Devonport with 13 degrees there. And Lou, we're going to need the brolly out tomorrow.
Looks like it, but at least it's good for the garden. Thanks for that, Chelsea. That's all your news for now for this Sunday evening. Thanks so much for joining us this weekend. Have a lovely evening. Good night.